The Yaffee Program on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. Apryl Marie Fogel here, filling in for Yaffee. Made it midway through the week. Here we are. Happy Wednesday. Also, for those of you who are participating, happy Holy Week. For those who don't know, I'm Catholic, and for Lent, gave up. And by the way, I've done a lot of things for Lent over the years. I actually would give up things for Lent before I fully converted to Catholicism, and I did that at 30. I'm 44 now. But this year I gave up gossip, and I gave up being mean without there being a purpose. Now I say without there being a purpose because some would argue that things I do or say for work or political opinions are mean. So if I'm being mean for a purpose, I gave myself that one. But you would be amazed at how much information you hear and see about people that you actually probably don't need to know. Yesterday, all the rage, and it might have been broke the day before, but yesterday and the day before, all the rage that was going on was related to Kristi Noem and her husband. Well, what I've realized in the last, 30, almost 40 days is I don't need to consume that. I don't. We live in a country where we like access to people's personal lives and their folly and their whatever. But Kristi Noem's husband and what he's doing on the internet is of no consequence to me. Now, if she was doing something scandalous, and by the way, not saying she was or wasn't, we all saw that hearing, but what if that would be a different story if it impacted her work? I was the same way, by the way, when it came to Governor Bentley's stuff. I was like, what's going on in Governor Bentley's life is between him and his wife, until we learned that there was taxpayer dollars at work there. So giving this up for Lent, the amount of information and news I consume has really narrowed down. But yes, I have seen all those stories, and it has really, not clicking has been a big part of my Lent, which also means I'm not going to be raging about that today. Lots of things to rage and talk about today, and I've got two guests coming on with me. So we'll be joined by Yaffee's regular Congressman Barry Moore, who of course is running for U.S. Senate this morning. And then a little later in the second hour, we'll be joined by Catherine Robertson, who works at the Attorney General's office and is of course running for Attorney General. So we'll talk to those two a little later this morning. Whew. Yesterday was a long day. So we started it off radio here. And as I mentioned towards the end of the show, my 8-year-old, is he 8 or 9? Oh, sheesh, he's 9, JK. My 9-year-old, the school had called and said, his allergies were bothering him. Come pick him up. Specifically, his eye was red. He had probably got pollen on his hand and rubbed it in his eye. So I get there and I finish the show, because what am I going to do? Leave the show because my son's eye is red? This was not a medical emergency. They have Benadryl there. So I go to pick him up, and he's sitting in the front office looking like the cat that got the canary. He could not believe that he was getting sent home for a red eye. By the time I got there, by the way, the medicine had already worked. I could hardly tell. He was barely nothing. So I spent the afternoon with my son, and then I later ended up taking him on a mommy-son dinner date, which was he's just lovely company at dinner. So we split an entree and hung out, and it was great. So that was my day, and then I realized after all of the things, right after radio, pickup, dropping my dollar off at volleyball, going to dinner, I get home. The legislature is still going. The House and the Senate were still going. They had taken a break and then come back because the Democrats on both sides of the aisle, but specifically the Senate, had decided they were going to just shut things down and make everything slow. Now, I don't encourage this for most people, but if you really need to feel your blood pressure rise, if you really want to see the dysfunction of the legislature, when you have time, you can go to the website, to the legislative website, and click live, and you can watch them on the House or Senate floor. And the incredible waste of time, the incredible, like, this is the best we've got. Every time it just fires me up to get more and more involved in elections, get me more and more fired up about what's going on in our state. So I did that. I watched it. Oh, gosh, I want to say I watched it from like 8:30 until they got out. The Senate went longer than the House. The Democrats in the Senate were pretty peeved off that the bill was going to be passed to name the Gulf of America as opposed to Gulf of Mexico for the state. Now, President Trump has already done this. And of all of the things the Democrats are going to hold up legislation for and really just, we're so mad, that just seems like such a silly thing. The other thing is we have a supermajority, and we entertain way too much Democrat madness for a state with a supermajority. I'm all for dissenting opinions being heard, but you cannot listen to, 20, 40 minutes of either side, the House or the Senate. Listen to Democrats make nonsensical arguments and talk in circles before you go, all right, enough. We need to actually get down to governing, to doing the things that matter. So I did, sure enough, I was watching it last night. I was texting with some lawmakers who were on the floor and who were some friends who were there. And people are like, why are you watching? And I was like, well, this, it's like a train wreck. It's like America's funniest videos or something, where you look and then you're like, what just happened? And you're like, but I can't look away. Like, oh, it's so cringe, but that's kind of funny, but cringe. On the House side, they spent, just a crazy amount of time arguing over something that's already been done by another piece of legislation that's passed. And I literally immediately was listening to the debate, and I'm like, that's not this bill. That's a different bill that y'all already passed. That's a different bill. And I'm like, can I just make an announcement? Can someone patch me in from my radio studio to the House floor where I can just interrupt and go, interrupting your regular scheduled idiocy to say what you're arguing about has already been done. Please stop talking about it. Thank you. Go about your business. That's really what I wanted to do. It was very annoying. The other thing is people who didn't get up to speak on a bill but haven't read the bill. That makes me seriously irate. But yes, I watched that for a long time yesterday, and just for the purposes of knowing what's going on, hearing the stupid arguments and all the things. So I may get into a little bit later, depending on how time goes, some of the things that they were arguing. Everything's racist. Can we just be clear? If ever in doubt, and you're trying to figure out what AL.com is trying to say, and whether it be a cartoon or a column, or what Democrats are trying to say in the Florida legislature, it's racist. That's what it boils down to. Oh, you want to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America? You're racist. Oh, you want to change this border commission? You're racist. Like, Lord have mercy. Get more nuanced arguments. But yes, I watched that. One of the big things of news, and I got it after, I was actually looking just a little bit ago to see what time it came in. But yesterday afternoon at 5:35, an email went out to the press corps. And I'm sure that Dale talked about it, but I'm going to tell you what it says. But it says, for the last 3 weeks, Governor Kay Ivey has experienced some discomfort in her left side. After monitoring the pain and recently feeling slightly short of breath, she made the decision to see her primary care physician earlier today. He recommended that she be seen at a surgeon. It was determined there was fluid pushing against her lung. And while it's not emergent, Governor Ivey wanted to get the procedure done as soon as possible to get it back to 100% to wrap up the 2026 session. This afternoon, meaning yesterday, the governor successfully underwent a minor procedure at Baptist South to remove that fluid. Out of an abundance of caution, she will be monitored at Baptist South in the coming days. So for those of you who are the praying type, and I hope that is everybody listening, please add Governor Kay Ivey to your prayer list. All right, so we're going to talk to these candidates a little bit about what's going on in the races, a little bit about what's going on in Washington, D.C. and Montgomery. I'm going to talk about things going on around the state. You know, it's fun. I have the for 1819 News, I've got among my 3 beats is the education beat, and there's some really cool things happening on our college campuses I want to talk to you about while I've still got your attention this week. All right, you guys hold tight. I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I'll jump right on into what's going on college campuses across the state.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
Well, good afternoon, or good morning, everyone. Apryl Marie here, filling in for Yaffee, who's getting baby time. As I mentioned before, I am the education reporter. I've got the education beat. I actually have education beat plus Second Amendment beat plus Central Alabama beat. But my primary job is education. So I have been watching what goes on in classrooms. By the way, I want to encourage you guys, and I mean this, sincerely mean this. My email is at the bottom of every story I write on 1819 News. If you know of something crazy happening in a classroom or on a college campus with administration, with something going on, drop me a line. That's how most of my stories, I get most of my stories. The majority of my stories come from someone who sees something, saying something. Gone are the days that you just got to sit there, shut up, and take it, whatever these teachers throw at you, especially on college campuses, because our legislature and even our president has gotten to the point where they're like, no, you don't have free reign to come in here as a teacher and basically preach liberal ideology, no matter if it has anything to do with the content of your classes. You know, we've got math teachers, we've got reading teachers, we've got engineering teachers, and at Auburn, it was the case with, it was architecture teachers out there teaching DEI concepts and LGBTQ. I'm not kidding when I tell you, students at the University of Auburn in their School of Architecture had to sit through a presentation about the harm of gendered bathrooms. That's paraphrasing what the program was, but I'm not exaggerating. The school brought in a specialist to talk about how having men's rooms and women's rooms are a thing of the past and bathrooms should be non-binary. What the actual heck is happening here? So I get tips like that from around the state, and I suss them out. I look at syllabus. I've read textbooks cover to cover. I've talked to students. I've had recordings. All of the things. But what makes me happy to see is that the legislature, and like I said, President Trump and even Secretary of Education Linda McMahon are starting to take this seriously. Because this idea of you will sit there, you will shut up, you will turn in papers that reflect your teacher's point of view, because any other point of view is going to get you a failing grade. Those days are over. This should have never happened to begin with. But when you look at what's happened on our college campuses over the last, 3 to 5 years, starting with the BLM riots to pro-terrorist, yesterday, I'm going to put this in air quotes because it's so insane, Trans Day of Visibility. Okay, basically you're doing, you've got a group of people standing there saying, I have mental illness and or I'm supportive of the world, requiring the rest of the world to conform and play along into this person's mental illness. No, thank you. But our college campuses have been ground zero for this madness. And I am so thrilled Alabama is fighting back. So they're doing that in a couple of different ways. One is a bill that came up yesterday that really says, there's an exclusion because it would require a constitutional amendment, but that's a story for a different day. But this bill would give the governing boards of colleges in the state of Alabama the ability to actually discipline tenured teachers. You guys know how these college campuses are. It used to be, you get it. Once you're tenured, you're done. You can do whatever you want. You can be a horrible teacher. You can teach whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. And with rare exception, there isn't a lot they can do. This bill, which you can read about on 1819 News, It's House Bill 580 would change that. Now, Craig Monger wrote this up, but tenured professors can be terminated under a bill that passed the House on Tuesday. Now, the systems of University of Alabama and Auburn, so Auburn is UA, Auburn and their Montgomery campus. University of Alabama is several campuses, but what this would do is say that other colleges, the leadership would be able to, at those institutions, would be able to hold those teachers accountable. Why aren't we doing this already? And then there is a carve out, like I said, for those two big systems. But I really feel like administrators are starting to wake up to the fact that they're going to lose more and more students the more woke they go. So we've been exposing over at 1819 News, and I know that Dale has talked about it and Yaffee have talked about it. We've been exposing the woke programs, the woke teachers, the radical ideology on these campuses. And we really are starting to get into, and I've started to get more and more tips of K-12 teachers, teachers with LGBTQ flags hanging in their classrooms, teachers with the stickers on their door, teachers who go by they, them pronouns. Those are among my favorites, by the way. Why the heck do we have teachers in teaching, well, at any level in K-12, but specifically in lower grades, elementary school and middle school, where kids are really impressionable? Why do we have teachers there going by they, them? Call me Mix April. How about no? How about you go find a doctor who's going to cure what's wrong with you? There's no they, them nonsense here. But we have to root that out, and then we have to make those administrators hold them responsible, okay? Because for whatever reason, we have had our K-12, some of the most impactful people in my life were teachers, and that's the way it's supposed to be. They're spending a lot of time with you. They should help you hone your values in terms of how to be a productive member of society, a kind member of society, realizing the world doesn't revolve around you, all of those things. What they should not be doing is taking their political ideology or even their insanity and pushing that onto kids. And so again, my emails, if you go to 1819 News, it's on any of my things. And if you've got like a teacher you know about, if you got a student at a college in Alabama and you're like, oh, I've heard horror stories, send me a message. I got your back. And by the way, we can do a lot of those once I actually confirm that it's the truth, whether with images or phone calls or whatever. A lot of times, especially when it comes to kids and parents not feeling like they want to face retaliation, we can do those without using those names. All right, so that's happening. The University of Alabama, it really looks like their administration is going to get a hold of their current social studies program. And if you haven't seen my stories there, you want to talk about some we don't give a hoot attitudes, go look at what they are teaching in these social worker programs in Alabama's universities, because these aren't the social workers of our day and age. These aren't the social workers who are going in and making sure families are necessarily safe or doing what a traditional social worker does. No, these are basically ideological hacks who get degrees, and I have studied and looked into some of their continuing education credits, just race baiting, LGBTQ again, woke, nonsensical stuff. And we got to cut that out. And it looks like the Alabama legislature has begun to do that this session. Alex Stein, I wish I had a text line to know how you guys feel about him, was at Auburn yesterday for a Turning Point USA event. And one thing I have to say is I'm watching these campuses and I'm watching these conservative groups on these campuses, and they are getting more and more active and bigger by the day. And I love it. I love it because no longer, and even I went to Florida State University, but no longer are we in a day and a time where conservatives on campus feel like they can't talk, feel like their classmates or their teachers are going to shun them. No, those days are gone, and better days are coming. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I'm going to get Barry Moore on the line, and we'll go from there. You guys hold tight. Apryl Marie filling in for Yaffee.
It's the Yaffee Program on WVNN.
The NFL Draft, presented by Bud Light, is coming to Pittsburgh, and it's your chance to witness the future of the game for free from April 23rd to April 25th. Feel the energy of the NFL Draft. See the Vince Lombardi Trophy and Super Bowl rings. Meet NFL players and legends. Enjoy interactive games and live music performances, and be there as the future of the NFL takes center stage. The NFL Draft starts April 23rd. Register for free entry at NFL.com/draft access today.
This isn't your average podcast.
This pod is about to be crazy. I don't even know what's going to happen.
This is Full Send.
It's just like a boys' scrap.
Join the party.
We threw like a spontaneous party out of nowhere. It was crazy. And we pulled off a crazy prank.
Pranks, parties, and viral culture at its wildest.
Just seeing like the guys that you brought in and like seeing their different personalities and stuff. It's been entertaining, dude.
So this could be the greatest content builder of all time, bro.
The Full Send podcast.
Dude, let's get ready to rumble.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Let's do it.
Well, good morning, everyone. Yaffee is not back. You've still got April Marie here filling in as he is on daddy. I keep saying daddy duty, but that just sounds so weird. He is on he's on daddy leave with that beautiful baby of his. So I'm excited to be here, and even more excited to get to talk to his regular, one of his regular guests, Congressman Barry Moore. Welcome to the program, Congressman.
Good morning, April. Great to be with you.
Great to have you here. I know you are out and about working really hard on the campaign. Can you tell us a little bit how that's going? What are you up to this week? Where have you been?
Yeah, so actually we are actually on our way this morning. We're going to be speaking up in Anniston, and then I'm going to be in Troy, and then back North Alabama towards the Shoals area later this week. So just making the rounds. I think I'm doing some stuff in Auburn as well. So we're on the road as always, but hearing great things and just out meeting the people. There are great people all across the state of Alabama. So it's always fun. That's the fun part of the job, is meeting the people. Well, and
any good politician, any good candidate knows that at the end of the day, big endorsements are great to have. We just heard that Trump ad, the ad highlighting Trump's endorsement of you, but it's the people you meet. It's the people who get out and vote who really matter.
That's exactly right. And we've always been just a great grassroots group. Heather and I, the years we've been doing this, I guess I've been in D.C. for 5 years now, but you run every 2 years in Congress. And so our districts got redrawn, and the last cycle they drew the only House Freedom Caucus guy out of his district, the courts did. So we had to go down and run and meet folks in Baldwin, Mobile County. And it's just, as you meet them there, just like I said, across the state. And we're finding that now as we move north in Alabama, whether it's Huntsville or Tuscaloosa or wherever we're going, it's just, they're good people. And the grassroots, that's the great thing. I mean, there are patriots across the state, and after they get to know you and you get to know them, they become friends for life.
Yep, absolutely. Well, the endorsements do not hurt, though, and you've got some strong ones. Of course, most everybody has heard by now President Donald Trump is supporting you, but some of your colleagues in the House and even some senators have endorsed you recently. Tell me a little bit about those.
Yeah, so Jim Jordan, obviously. Jim and I serve on Judiciary Committee. Polly and he are good friends of Heather and I, and having Jim's endorsement, of course, as you get Senate Conservatives PAC on board, about 16 or 17, maybe even more House Freedom Caucus members have endorsed me. Keith Self, who's the Green Beret from Texas, Warren Davis, an Army Ranger from Ohio. And so as well as Tim Scott from Carolina and Bernie Moreno from Ohio, the senators, Cynthia Loomis, who was one of the founding members of the House Freedom Caucus, who's now a senator, she's endorsed us. And so Rick Scott from Florida. We've just had it's just been a coalescing behind, because we are a known commodity in D.C. And if you saw my heritage score came out yesterday, I have a 100 heritage score, which is a conservative. I mean, that is kind of the benchmark for many people. And to get 100 with heritage means that you're voting Alabama, you're voting conservative values in D.C. But I think the thing that helps me is that I'm an honest broker in D.C. Like I said, I've been there 5 years. And I don't always vote with leadership, obviously, but they know that I'm. And I'm going to help move President's America First agenda. You're not going to get perfect in every bill. You just can't do that. There's 435 versions in the House. You can always stand on your principles, and there's a practical solution, but you're never going to get the perfect. And so we've been able to work through, as like I said, being a member of House Freedom Caucus, having a 100% heritage score, and being an ally with the president to move his agenda. Those are the things I think that make us able to pull so much support from not only within D.C. but within the state of Alabama. And so things are coming together. We're feeling really good, and as we're leading in the polls now and having good success on the road out here meeting people, and the endorsements certainly are helpful.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, when you're on the road, what I have long learned is that's really where the issues and that are the pulse. The media will try to drive an agenda in terms of what they think is the most important thing. But you're going to really hear what's most important when you're at restaurants having lunch, when you're giving speeches and people are coming up to you afterwards. What are you finding just within the last week or so people really want to talk to you about? Is it the shutdown of DHS, Iran? What are you hearing most about?
Yeah, I think the shutdown DHS was part of the problem. I think what President Trump has done with ICE has opened up. I mean, I've flown 2 times in the last 3 or 4 days, and it's the ICE guys working that. I thanked them yesterday at an airport because they're just moving the people through. But in addition to that, obviously, the war in Iran, people want us to take care of that job and do a good job and get it done. And so those are things. Obviously, the media is pushing affordability. They don't talk about gas prices when Biden was there, but it goes up during the war with Iran. And so people hear about that and they ask you about that. But those are the kind of things I'm hearing out there right now. I think most part of what we're seeing is in Alabama, people are pleased with what the president's doing. They see him as a courageous leader, fixing problems that should have been fixed for decades. And he's doing the work that needs to be done. And then I'm hearing good things on the big beautiful bill, because like I've had people call me and say, thank you, we got more money back as a married couple working than we have historically. And so we're starting to see those tax refunds, people seeing they're paying a lot less taxes this year. And so I've actually got calls, people thanking me, and people that see me out there as they're filing going, hey, thank you, we actually appreciate the tax cuts in the big beautiful bill. So you get concerns about fuel prices, but they're grateful because of the war in Iran, but they're grateful for the tax breaks that we gave in the big beautiful bill.
Well, looking at what's going on in Iran and just looking across the globe and what President Trump has done, we heard from liberals when Trump put Hegseth in his current position. We have heard from people who weren't sure how Rubio was going to do as Secretary of State. What are your thoughts watching them step forward into this, the roles they have and how they're doing with Trump's agenda?
I think they're doing an incredible job. I mean, President Trump, I think in the first term, he trusted the D.C. swamp. I mean, he trusted in 2016, he went in and, I'm the executive here. They're going to do what I ask. And in many cases, the swamp, certainly the DOJ weaponized against him. I think he's done such a better job of putting key people in key roles. And whether it's Rubio as Secretary of State, Pete Hegseth, obviously as Secretary of War, the president has surrounded himself with some true leaders, and there are some bright spots, I think, in the cabinet, and certainly the agenda that the president's pushing. And I think, I don't know who it was, Jimmy Kimmel was hitting Mark Wayne Mullen for being a plumber and a business guy, but he's going to be a heck of a secretary for DHS because he's a tough guy, but he's a business guy. He gets it. And the Secretary of Navy that I flew down with last week when we announced Hadrian, the new submarine manufacturing facility up in Northwest Alabama, that guy was a business guy. And the president approached him. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll help fix the Navy. And we did this thing with Hadrian in 12 months. And that is unheard of through the departments and the agencies and the red tape. The way they're moving the needle and they're doing it in such an efficient manner, it's interesting to watch, and I think it's good for the country.
No, I think you're absolutely right. You nailed it on. And Kim, I talked yesterday about Kimmel's comments on Mark Wayne Mullen and just how detached people are from the reality of even what college degrees have become. This is a big thing. Do you really need the college degree if you've got the real world experience, knowing now what's happened to our colleges?
Yeah, the ruling elite, I mean, they almost look down their noses at blue-collar workers. I think that's why we're picking up so much support as Republicans. We're becoming the working man's party. In addition to that, the business owners party and the Patriots party and the America First people. And so we have an interesting group within the movement in the Republican Party. And I think the fact that Kimmel was talking down his nose at Mark Wayne because he's actually a guy who has a few calluses on his hands, I think that's what we need more of in D.C. I mean, I'm a garbage guy that came from a small business background. I have calluses on my hands, and we need more of that in D.C. We need guys that are signed in front of paychecks that understand that when you send your money to D.C., it needs to be managed in an efficient manner and needs to accomplish the purpose in which the American people trust us in government to handle.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. So what we're seeing in the U.S. Senate right now, just absolutely stalemate coming because Democrats are blocking this funding. What do you see happening with that? What do you want to happen with that?
I think we need to, and I've been saying this, Coach has been saying this, we need to blow through this filibuster thing. The Democrats, they're using that 60 vote thing to shut down the president's agenda. I mean, and whether it's funding of DHS, we've done 11 or 12 approach bills. If we can get this DHS thing figured out, it'll be the first time in 30 years that Congress has funded all 12 appropriations bills in regular order. We haven't done that in 30 years in this country. The only thing now that stands in the way is the Democrats, and they're putting illegal aliens ahead of the American people and our own public safety. And so I would like to see us get through the filibuster. I don't think, because the only two Democrats that held it up last time were Sinema and Manchin. They're both gone. So if the Dems ever get power in the Senate, they're going to blow through it. They'll nuke it day one. And so why not go ahead before the midterms and move these items that are so very important to certainly the Save America Act, just making sure that U.S. citizens. I think that we know that the polling's out there. 85% of the American people, doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, want American citizens voting in American elections. Yet somehow the Democrats are not listening to their base. They're not listening to any of their people because they've been hijacked by this radical left that wants to import voters and displace American people voters and cancel them out. And certainly they want them counted in a census. So we need to get rid of this filibuster thing, go ahead and get the 12 approach bills finished across the finish line, get the Save America Act, and push the president's America First agenda. The country will be much better for it.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to call. Tell our listeners where they can find out more about you. They can see where you're going, get to a campaign event, all of those things. What's the best place to find you?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Yeah, BarryMooreForAlabama.com. People can go on there. We schedule where we're going to be and let folks know what's going on with our campaign. Like I said, we're in a good spot. We're building so much momentum, and so we're excited and looking forward to May 19th.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to call. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, April Marie.
All right. That was Congressman Barry Moore, of course, running for U.S. Senate. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, he said a few things I want to get into. I really can't stress this enough. The night and day difference between Trump administration 1 and Trump administration 2 and the direction our country is going in. I look at this and I'm like, woof, doing things right. And we really are on the right path. And I think we do have a deep bench for when Trump's term is over. All right, back in just a second. You're listening to April Marie, filling in for Yaffee.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. April Marie here, filling in for Yaffee today and for the rest of the week. I am terrible with Facebook. I will repeat that. I am terrible with Facebook, but I am on X, pretty active on X. That's APRYLMARIE. And of course, you can find my writing and stories over at 1819news.com. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. I am on the education beat, primarily. Also the Second Amendment beat. But education, so if you have any tips or stories, there is a teacher in your kid's school who's doing something crazy woke. You've talked to the administrators. They're not taking care of it. Let me know. Proof always helps. You've got a class assignment, a picture, all those things. But if you can give me a tip, I will try to chase it down. All right. Want to say hi to my friend Grady who's listening. Always appreciate those of you who take the time to listen to me wherever I am around the state. This afternoon later, so actually Barry and I were discussing, the congressman and I were discussing offline. He said, I think the last time I talked to you, you were filling in for Jeff down in Mobile. Well, since I gave up my own show, this is what I do now. I'm a floater. I'm a floating fill-in. And so today I'm filling in here, and then I have an hour-long break, and I'll be on down in Mobile. And while I miss being on radio every day, I appreciate that people will give me the opportunity to fill in for them. Y'all have to poke Dale to get me to fill in for him when he takes a vacation sometime. All right, so Congressman Moore made some really great points there, and I talk about this a lot, the difference between Trump term 1 and Trump term 2, and spelling out where, people will talk about Trump as, really, and the left will say it more than anything. He cares about himself. He cares about his record, his reputation and his own agenda and his own this and his own that. But if you look at what Trump has done versus even say a Bush or an Obama or any president in recent history, he has put together a cabinet of officials in this second term that takes our bench in terms of superstars for future elections and superstars for really continuing a conservative agenda. And Trump has lined that up for us. The Democrats, they don't have a deep base. What are they going to do? They're going to take Gavin Newsom, who's had fires under his watch. The homelessness issues and the waste, fraud, and abuse going on in California is insane. What they have done in terms of, and it's inhumane. It is inhumane what Governor Newsom has done in California to look at the people on the street, look at those with substance abuse disorders, those with addictions, those with a mental health crisis. And all they have done is allowed people to pad their own pockets in the name of, of being sensitive to and in the name of supportive of. No, not how you handle this. The licenses for truckers who can't speak English. So much we're seeing out of these blue states. And here we are in this Trump administration, and even looking around the country at people who are showing and proving that they have a record that can help keep our country on a great path. Ron DeSantis, I was a huge Ron DeSantis supporter. It's funny because people ask me, like, where do you fall in the MAGA spectrum? And well, I'll tell you, I voted Mo Brooks over Katie Britt. I did that. Was a big DeSantis supporter. Early was a Ted Cruz supporter. I'm pretty conservative. And that said, I'm looking at this next generation of Republican leadership, and I'm seeing Trump just really elevate people to positions where I think they're going to get a good opportunity to demonstrate their skills. Rubio has done that, and Linda McMahon has certainly done that in what she's done with the Department of Education. We've heard for decades Republicans say we're going to return the power to the states. But no, they're not just talking about it in this Trump administration. They're doing it. When have you ever seen someone given power and control over an agency and then them say out loud, we're going to dismantle this agency. If I am effective, I'm going to make my job pretty much useless. And that's what they've done with education. They also made a lot of changes over at agencies that we don't talk a lot about. I got part of my career started with internships over in Washington, D.C. in these very low administrative jobs when I was just getting out of college and when I was in college. EPA, not many people think about the EPA. Do you know who thinks about the EPA? The businesses and the companies who are trapped in regulations and red tape that are unnecessary but put in place by the deep state across generations, literally decades and decades, Republicans and Democrats, blocking businesses with unnecessary gobbledygook, usually to help one industry over another, by the way. Not in terms of the environment, just a leftist radical agenda. We don't have to look much further than the solar nonsense that we've seen for decades and decades. But Trump has gone in and said, we're going to unring the bell. We're going to get rid of as many regulations and free up companies as much as we can. And we don't care if the environmentalists lie about us and call us names. We don't care what they're saying. We care about American jobs, America first. Hey, that sounds familiar. Department of Interior. It's really funny. The agencies that under Trump have really taken the time to give power back. And it's pretty cool to me. All right, I have talked myself right into a break and into our second hour. We'll be back on the flip side of this, and we'll continue talking about things going on around the country and here in Alabama.
The Yaffee Program.
Hi, I'm Joe Saul-Sehy, host of the Stacking Benjamins podcast.
Most economists agree small amount of inflation is actually good. 2% is what you're going for. So why is everybody freaking out?
Oh, because it's the fallout. People don't track their budget. You have this slow slipping that happens every month until all of a sudden you go, man, I don't have any money. The reason is now two people go to a restaurant. The bill is $60 for two.
Two guys walk into a restaurant.
They start screaming. Isn't that hilarious?
$60. Ah!
Stacking Benjamins. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
The Yaffee Program on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. April Marie here, filling in for Yaffee. I appreciate the listen. You can find me on X at APRYLMARIE. I don't have access to the text line, so if you want to reach me, you got to reach me there. Excited to bring the next guest on. Man, she has done so much for the state of Alabama, for families and residents. It's incredible. It is Catherine Robinson. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. So great to be with you. Love that you're filling in today.
Yes, I'm having fun over here. Well, I yesterday, so I have a very odd, I don't even know what to call it. So I would say fascination. It's a hobby. I'm not sure, but I'm obsessed with SCOTUS blog. I just, for whatever reason, I've love watching the Supreme Court. And yesterday we got a decision out of the Supreme Court that was just a tremendous win for families, for sanity. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that because we have seen a lot, especially coming out of Alabama, a lot of SCOTUS decisions and decisions in our states that protect youth from radical trans ideology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was a really interesting win. It was not, in my mind, it wasn't really a difficult decision for them to reach, but it is pretty amazing that it was an 8-1 decision, which means only one of the liberal justices, and you can guess which one, took the opposite approach. All the rest of them were all on the same page that a state cannot prohibit a Christian counselor from counseling people the way that, he or she feels is best. And Colorado has a history now over the last decade or so of being really discriminatory specifically against the Christian point of view. And so this was a big win and nice to have just like a very decisive win in this space.
Well, you're an active member, and I've seen you represent Alabama at some of the Republican Attorney General's events. Alabama has really led the way on protecting religious freedoms, on protecting parental rights. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've done and what the office has done here in Alabama?
Yeah, I think every attorney general is going to kind of have their issues that they're always going to want to be out in front on. And in some ways, this trans issue, came to us. Alabama was one of the first states to pass the VCAP law, as you're very familiar with, which bans the practice of transgender medicine from being practiced on children. And we were one of the first states to pass that law, and then one of the first states to fight a challenge. And so that continued to open the door for Alabama to really have a national lead on that issue, coupled with First Amendment issues that go along with that. I think a lot of people don't realize that the trans agenda is also a very huge problem for free speech, whether that's for teachers, for counselors, for people in the workplace. If there are laws demanding that you recognize and defer to someone's gender identity, then that impacts your ability to speak the way you want to speak. And so one of the big issues we litigated in Title IX was try to protect our teachers and principals and school administrators from having to kowtow to, the ever-changing whims of, teenagers that may come in one day and say they're a boy and the next and say they're a girl. So lots of First Amendment issues and religious liberty issues tied up with fighting this agenda at large.
Yeah. Well, I just truly appreciate what you guys have done. This is one of those fights where I remember when it happened, people were like, is this really an issue? And then we found out this was a big issue in Alabama, and it's specifically in Birmingham through the UAB was really, I put in air quotes, treating these kids, and it was frightening. Well, I want to transition a little bit. You have an article in the Washington Post, and it really brings attention to something we most of us don't think about. It's as I said earlier to our listeners, my full-time beat is the education beat here in Alabama now. And so I'm becoming more and more aware of these things that are impacting our schools and our teachers. You talk about one, which is the desegregation orders that are impacting the state. Tell our listeners who may not know, even here in Huntsville, about them, what's going on here.
Yeah, so, we've been having this big conversation about race and when government can or cannot, view citizens through the lens of race. And that's been a very hot topic. You have the Harvard admissions decision where the United States Supreme Court said, the time for that kind of racial preference has passed. That was to right a historical wrong that has long been corrected, and to continue that practice of viewing university applicants through the lens of race is unconstitutional. Then we, went into this debate about redistricting and whether our citizens should be grouped together or drawn together in congressional districts, prioritizing race above all else. And then, of course, you've had the Trump administration through various executive orders really try to get rid of this poison of DEI, that was just forced out during the Biden administration. And so, but there's another angle here that we've seen a little action from the Trump Civil Rights Division out of DOJ, and that is these desegregation orders. So very similar to redistricting, states like Alabama and many deep South states have public school systems that are under federal court orders that were put in place in the 60s and 70s, demanding that the government not stand in the way of integration in public schools. And you could argue that was a needed tool back then, but to argue that same thing in 2026 is insane. And it's very similar to the insanity of redistricting. And so I wrote a piece for the Washington Post this week, which I couldn't believe that they published. But I just sort of argue that while we're having this conversation about university admissions, while we're having this conversation about congressional maps, we've got to be talking about these desegregation orders. We think that there are roughly 40 school systems in Alabama that still exist under these. And what it means is that on an annual basis, the school system has to certify the racial diversity of their teachers, the racial diversity of their students, all the way down to school discipline and gifted programs. And I just think it's a shame. It is a costly thing. You have to have lawyers working on it, incessantly, year after year after year. The federal judges who put these orders in place died a long time ago. And so it's just time to see these lifted. And I'd like to see our state negotiate with the Trump administration to get these things lifted across our state and let our schools operate freely without, this burden hanging over them. And I think especially because of the progress we've made on school choice, there's just no argument that these are still needed. People have so many more opportunities than they've ever had before.
Yeah. Would this be something that is administered by both the Department of Education and Department of Justice? What in the Trump administration, who would be the key to unlocking this and ending this madness?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was the United States Justice Department that sued these states and sued these school systems years and years and years ago. And so that's why the settlement negotiations would really be with DOJ. The tricky part, as I pointed out in my op-ed, is that the Attorney General's office does not specifically have the authority to represent local school systems. That's part of the reason they're spending so much money on legal bills. And so my idea is that these school systems, let us represent them in negotiations and see if we can't come up with a global resolution for all the school systems in our state, rather than trying to tackle them one by one, where they're footing the bill. AG representation is free if you'll let us represent you. And so it's just something I've kind of had in the back of my mind for a long time, but you have to wait for the right moment and the right DOJ. And I think that moment is upon us.
That's awesome. Okay, so you've been with the Attorney General's office now for how many years?
10 years.
10 years. I still have you in my phone as with Alabama Policy Institute, which cracks me up every time I go to call you.
I'll still claim them.
And you are obviously now running for Attorney General. How is that race going? And what are you centering that campaign on?
Yeah, I mean, the race is going well. We're something like 47 days out from the May 19th primary. My story is a little different than a lot of people that choose to run for office. I've never wanted to, never had the ambition, and really never planned to. But what I'm running is just on the invaluable experience of being in that office for 10 years, being the right-hand man to the Attorney General, and learning that office in a way that you just can't. Looking from the outside in, the decisions that have come across the AG's desk over the last 10 years are some of the wildest things I think that office could ever deal with, whether that's the opioid epidemic, the Biden administration, a pandemic, nationwide vaccine mandates. That kind of battle-testedness, I think, is what sets me apart. And so I have worked doggedly to go all over the state of Alabama to share my story and my experience and what my vision is for the office. And I just think that if you have an opportunity to elect an Attorney General who has a jump start, that doesn't need any on-the-job training, that can be ready on day one to pick up some of these very important fights, to help a brand new governor and a brand new slate of constitutional officers, and then to make the most of the last 2 years of the Trump administration without needing time to get revved up and learn the job and learn the office. That's what I'm offering. And so I'm also, I believe, the law enforcement candidate in this race, and I think I'm the most proven conservative candidate in this race. So I'm out sharing my story with Alabamians, and I feel like it's resonating.
I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I feel like every couple of days I get an email saying that another sheriff or law enforcement officer has endorsed you. Do you know approximately how many you have of the sheriffs around the state? Because it seems like it's pretty consistent, pretty constant.
Yeah, I've been so honored by that, and I think that's just a testament to, the work that I've done over the years. I've been a behind-the-scenes person, and that's not always what you need to launch a political campaign. You need to have been out in front, and I really haven't been. But the sheriffs have been super loyal to me. I think I have 26 endorsements at this point, which is the majority of the Republican sheriffs, and several prominent police chiefs as well. But I think they're the kind of people that they're in the foxhole with you. They see what goes on behind the scenes, and some of those endorsements just have really meant a lot to me. I'm a first-time candidate. It's a risk to associate with somebody who's never run for office before, and the fact that so many of them are willing to stand with me has really touched me, and I think has gotten the attention of their constituents.
I think that's amazing. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to give us a call today. I'll repost that story that you wrote just so our listeners can read that themselves. So if you guys want to see it. Now, where can our listeners find you online?
Yeah, if you like hot takes on policy issues, I would suggest my X account. It's KGRob27. If you want to see what I'm out doing on the campaign trail, I would check out Instagram at Catherine for AG or Facebook, Catherine Robertson for Attorney General. My commitment to you is I try not to be boring. So check us out.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We hope you have a great day, Catherine. I appreciate the call.
Thank you. Great talking with you.
All right. That was Catherine Robinson from the Attorney General's office. It's so crazy. I have the Attorney General's office here in Alabama has done just tremendous work, and I was slow. I didn't know Steve Marshall when he was first elected, and I don't want to say I was critical, but I was a little critical of him. I was like, she's signing on to a lot of letters, a lot of support, and then I realized that the coalition that has been built with Republican AGs across the country, those relationships, the relationships that now translate over to DOJ, they have been tremendous for the success of things here in Alabama. And whereas I hope and pray on a regular basis, I always say, look at what other states are doing, other governors leading the way. Here in Alabama, we've had an attorney general who's been doing that. So pretty cool. And that's an important race. All right. I've talked myself right over a break. I'm going to get myself in trouble with Yaffee here. You guys hold tight, take a break and come back and we'll talk about these issues and more.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
Well, good morning, everyone. April Marie here, filling in for Yaffee. I'm broadcasting out of Birmingham, for those who don't know, and it is a gray day here. It's like the kind of day I will admit I'm doing this show from sweatpants, and I'm not sure I'm going to actually get dressed any better than this today. Not gonna lie. It's been a great week being here, and I appreciate those of you who have sent me messages. As I mentioned, you can find me on X, but also my email address is at the bottom of all of my stories on 1819news.com. So much to say. I really enjoy it when they take the time. I say they being elected officials or candidates take the time to give us a call, talk about what's going on the campaign trail. It is getting closer and closer to this upcoming May election. I can always tell that, because my mailbox starts getting a little more mail in it. And then I don't know how y'all feel about surveys, but we've got a contested. I'm in a contested legislative seat, and so I'm not only getting mail, I'm getting text, and I'm getting polling, and nothing entertains me more than looking at the polling questions. I actually got a Doug Jones poll the other day, and it was so negative Tommy Tuberville. It was comical. It was. I was thinking to myself, I was like, what the heck list are they using? Because if you look at my voter record, it's very clear I'm a Republican voter. I say it's very clear if you look at anything about me that I'm Republican. And I don't say conservative. Yes, I'm absolutely conservative, Christian conservative, Catholic conservative at that. But I'm a Republican. And I say that because I think a lot of people are, oh, well, I don't do parties. Well, our party system is what gets people elected these days, right? If you aren't paying attention to, party events and what your local clubs are doing, you're missing opportunities to get to know your elected officials. I am a huge believer in your local Republican county organizations, your women's clubs, your men's clubs, and I know you guys have some great ones in Huntsville. There's all sorts of other organizations you can get involved in that aren't necessarily party oriented, but those party events and those party meetings are where you see these people, where the rubber meets the road, and you are going to consistently see, if they're doing their job, you're going to consistently see those who you have elected. Municipal elections are, of course, nonpartisan, but you're still going to see your municipal, your city council, your county commission. You're going to see them at some of those meetings. And then you're also going to see your legislators, and not just during session time, especially come campaign time. And these statewide elected officials, they are not elusive. They are at these meetings. And so I highly encourage, it actually takes work not to get in front of these candidates and ask them questions, because that's what they want to be. They want to be standing in front of you. They want to know. As I was talking with Barry Moore about, they want to know what matters to you. They want to hear, did you wake up thinking about gas prices? Did you wake up thinking about Iran? Did you wake up thinking about, farmer subsidies? Who knows? But your opportunity to talk to them, to get beyond the mail piece, beyond the commercial, is right in front of you nearly every day. So if you aren't going to those things, I want to highly encourage you to do it, just because it's your opportunity. I've got a lot of libertarian leaning friends, and they're like, oh, I don't want anything to do with the Republican Party. And I'm like, well, go to your Republican Party events, and no, you're not going to agree with everyone on everything, but we're in a Republican state, baby. And so if you want to find that elected official, that's a good place to go and do it. So can't encourage you enough to do that. And you'll get to where you can effectively, and this is my huge, I actually spoke to the Bama Carry, the Second Amendment group, spoke to at their annual conference just a couple of weeks ago on effectively lobbying, effectively communicating with your lawmakers. If these people only hear from you when you are calling to tell them, no, don't do something, or you're only calling them to say you're stupid for having done something, you're not going to be effective. You're not going to get what you want done. What you have to do is and I implore you, you have to build relationships with these people, because that's what they are. They're people. They really are. The governor, lieutenant governor, okay, not particularly this governor, and I won't be too hard on her today because she's in the hospital, but generally speaking, your governor, your lieutenant governor, attorney general, all of these individuals, they are answerable to you. They have a job where they need to be hearing from you. Your members of Congress. Get to know their district director, get to know their legislative affairs director in their DC office. That way when something is coming up, you're not just another email on the stack. You're just not just another name on a phone call list, but you're the person they want to hear what you have to say because they know you're going to get out and vote. They know you're listening. They know you're paying attention. And so can't encourage that enough. I talk all the time, obviously on radio, but I also take the time to shoot messages. I'll shoot a text message to an elected official and say, hey, I see this thing is coming up. Where are you on this? And you want the ability to do that. 9 times out of 10 on a state level, you can get your lawmaker's cell phone number. You can communicate with them regularly. And if you're doing so respectfully, even when you disagree with them, you're going to get so much further. I tell people all the time, it's carrot and stick. You can't just run around chasing them with a stick. That's not an effective way to get them to do what you need them to do. All right, end of that rant. Well, I wanted to, in the last half hour, we're going to talk about some of the things that the legislature is still doing as they are back. We'll talk about what the legislature is doing. We'll talk about, Lord have mercy, a scam that's going on right now that some people are falling for. All of these things and more on the Yaffee program with Apryl Marie.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
Vince Colonnese is redefining news talk.
I'm Vince Colonnese, host of the Vince Podcast. I'm bringing you the truth beneath the headlines of all of the nation's top stories.
In-depth interviews.
We feature news-making interviews with the top guests on the whole planet. And I'll ask the questions you only dream of other interviewers asking.
And a front row seat to the most important conversations of the day.
It's a show with an obsessive focus on what's good for America. You are going to love Vince.
The Vince Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
News on WVNN.
Well, good morning. Apryl Marie here, filling in for Yaffee. I will be all week long. It's been really fun to be here. If you need to reach me, you can use X. Begrudgingly, there is a Facebook. I rarely check it. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure I checked it this week. But there are X or my email at the bottom of my 1819 stories. All right. I was trying to get into some of what's gone on this week in the legislature. Yesterday afternoon, there started being some discussion in the Senate around, and you know, I could be polite about this, but I'm not even going to. Basically, they're going to take away what little power, they're going to take away what little power the lieutenant governor currently has before the next lieutenant governor comes in. That's the plan. And there started being mumblings about this early on in the session. And, you know, I could tap dance, I could whatever, but you're used to Dale, so I can give it to you straight. Basically, you can tell the legislature does not like any of the candidates we have running for lieutenant governor. Bottom line it. Because what this is doing is this is readying them for any one of the candidates who come, them being the Senate, by the way, for any one of the candidates that come so that they don't have to deal with them as much. Alabama Daily News kind of has the scoop, which again, it's been a lot of these things have been floated throughout session of things that might be forthcoming. But some of the proposed changes would give the pro tem of the Senate the same powers of the Speaker of the House. And so it would allow the president of the pro tem to preside over the Senate if the lieutenant governor, which is usually a presiding officer, does not arrive within 5 minutes of the appointed start time. If you are late, you have no job here. If you are late, don't bother coming. It entertains me to know it. Remove the lieutenant governor from the panel that selects the members and leadership of the Senate's 17 standing committees. allow the pro tem to select Senate appointees to conference committees, the bodies of the House and Senate that work out the difference. So if the House passes a bill and then the Senate passes the bill, but they're different, then they come together in these conference committees and kind of hammer it out. This would make the Senate pro tem have that power. It creates another thing the Senate is trying to do is create a new standing committee on economic expansion. There are just a myriad of things that have that are going on. The proposed rules don't change the ability of the senators to filibuster local legislation, but I just want to say here's the lesson. The lesson to be learned is the Senate does not want to deal with people they don't want to deal with. And we saw this. This is pretty much, if you look at the Public Service Commission bill that came up earlier, the polite thing was, oh, we're going to change the structure. Oh, we're going to change the makeup. In reality, it was like, this is the best we've got. The people leading the way in the current public service commissions, this is the best candidates we've got. Now, they can find 100 different ways to be polite about it, but that's what's happening. The people in Montgomery are used to choosing their own, successors, their own heir apparents, with rare exception. They really like things done a certain way. You can see that right here in this Huntsville race with Mo Brooks against Lomax. It's, the Montgomery crowd, and I'm not saying it's, right or it's wrong, but the Montgomery crowd has made it clear who they want, and it is not Mo Brooks. And so you look at this and you go, this is what happens. There is in nearly every race, there is a Montgomery preferred candidate. And usually that's a candidate who's not going to speak up, who's not going to rock the boat, who's going to go along with what leadership wants, who's going to, kind of be in the know and be likable. When Jim Ziegler was state auditor, the level of petty that he had to experience, I would say it's comical. I don't know anyone else. They took away his parking spot. Every session they cut his budget. At some point they decided he couldn't rent out the office that the auditor had in the state house. They basically elbowed him away. And they were like, the truth be told, they were like, we just don't like you. We just don't like your personality. By the way, if you're not paying attention to the Public Service Commission races, Ziegler is doing really well in his. And so when you look at these power grabs, kind of look what's going on behind the scenes in Montgomery. Who's the front runners in that lieutenant governor race? And we see Wes Allen and we see John Wall. Pate is not doing as well as some people expected, although I think he's picking up some of the most traction according to one of the latest polls. And so the Senate is bracing themselves. Like, what are we gonna do? There has been some friction, not as much as some, I think some offices see, between the lieutenant governor, currently Ainsworth, and the Senate. Ainsworth pretty much gets along with everybody. But even he wasn't upset. If you go back to when Ainsworth won office, Ainsworth ran against Twinkle Kavanaugh. I remember that race well. I know that because, the establishment had kind of handpicked Twinkle Kavanaugh from the Public Service Commission is going to go on to be the lieutenant governor. And Ainsworth was like, no. I think I'm going to run for this as well. And he went out there and he worked and he became the lieutenant governor. And so it's interesting to watch. And if you like the power plays and dynamics of Montgomery, if for no other reason than to understand how and why things get going and how and why things die, then this is something you're going to want to watch because I think it's really important. It's been this legislative session, which was supposed to be boring, has been anything but boring. It has been a real, I don't know what to say. It's been like a production, for lack of a better word, of some of the more establishment individuals, the more establishment systems being challenged in a good way, in a positive way. And I think they're all bracing for impact for when Tommy Tuberville's here. Imagine going from Kay Ivey, who can all but disappear for weeks and months at a time, from that to Tuberville, who is on the news every day. He's out and about. And no, no offense to Ivy, and again, praying for her as she's in the hospital right now. But Tuberville can run laps around Ivy even on her best day. And he is loud and he has an agenda, and he is going to do something. I mean, and by do something, I mean, he is going to push the Alabama legislature to the right, whether they like it or not. He is going to drag them if he has to, because if you look at Alabama voters, these are Trump voters. These are Ted Cruz voters. These are conservative, these Tuberville voters. These are people, we have people in this state who want a lot of these social issues, a lot of these conservative issues to be prioritized in ways that they haven't been before. We've got school choice. We've got excellent school choice now. Next year, the Choose Act will be available to every Alabama family. But look at how long it took for us to get that, because of the power and the grip that the teachers union has had on a supposedly super deep red state. You can look at a lot of these other social bills and go, why did that take so long? Under Tuberville, I expect to see a lot of things fast-tracked. Now, is Tuberville going to be 100% the answer to everyone's prayers? No. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at some of the people playing behind the scenes in a Tuberville gubernatorial situation. But I really do think the legislature is bracing for impact of what this looks like and making sure they control power. And this Senator Garland Gudger has been great, super conservative, but the one before him, I could tell you about the Democrats' appointments that Senate Pro Tem made. And so I think checks and balances are important. But looking at that lieutenant governor race, I can see how they would be. They would want to take back some of that power. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, sheesh, I talked myself right out of a program. We're going to look at some of the national issues to wrap up today. You guys hold tight. It's Apryl Marie filling in for Yaffee.
The Yaffee Program.
Offices, Montgomery.
Well, good morning, everyone. Apryl Marie here today and for the rest of the week, filling in for Yaffee. You can find me on X, APRYLMARIE. If you're texting the text line, I appreciate it. Go ahead and keep them coming, but I can't read them. I know. I got to work on this. I'm going to blame Dale because he's not around. He's probably not listening. And say it's Dale's fault. I can't look at the text messages. It's actually a cumulus thing. I fill in all the time in Birmingham. I do 4 hours there with no text messages. It drives me crazy. But all kidding aside, you can reach me and do take the time to do so if you'd like. All right, on the national stage today, big Supreme Court case obviously being heard. I'm still celebrating yesterday's win. President Trump did... Contrary to the liberals who were absolutely freaking out about the possibility yesterday, President Trump did show up for his first SCOTUS appearance, and one that is historic, showed up for the birthright citizenship case. And this is a case, and Trump has been talking about this for a long time. As a matter of fact, let's see, I've been in politics about 20 years. I have heard this just about every election cycle, and I've certainly heard this from more federal elected officials than I can count or care to name. But this is what was the intention of birthright citizenship. And I agree with Trump. This was not intended for people who are not here legally to come and have anchor babies. And I know that's such an offensive term. Well, you guys are listening to Dale every day. You're used to being offended. But seriously, that's what's happening. People crossing our border illegally, people coming here on a visitor visa, people coming here and overstaying a visa. There is an entire cottage industry baked around coming here to have a baby so that baby can have U.S. citizenship. That was never the intention. Attorney General Pam Bondi accompanied Trump to the Supreme Court this morning. Trump told Fox, "I have listened to this argument for so long, and this is not about Chinese billionaires or billionaires from other countries who all of a sudden have 75 children or 59 children in one case, or 10 children becoming American citizens. This was about slaves." talking is what he says. He said, it had to do with the babies of slaves. It didn't have to do with the protection of multimillionaire and billionaires wanting to have their children get American citizenship. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen, and it's been so badly handled by legal people over the years. Now, when Trump put his executive order out talking about this, and this is something Trump has talked about since he was running for office, liberal judges all across the country, because I don't know why, we've got an entire group of people over here screaming, no kings. The only kings and king-like figures I have seen during the second Trump administration are these judges who have self-appointed themselves king. Oh, I am more powerful than the president of the United States. These lower court judges who have done everything they can. If the president were to say, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, they would likely put out an order saying, no, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. They think everything he does is asking for permission, and it's not. This is one of those examples where we have activist judges interpreting law the wrong way. And I'm ready. I'm ready for the Supreme Court to make a decision on this. Trump's order would change the scope of birthright citizenship, and which allows babies born to non-citizens in the United States to automatically receive citizenship in the cases of those born to foreign diplomats. Lower courts, of course, have fought with Trump on this. I'm almost scared. I've got a link here, but I'm almost scared to click it because I don't want the audio to play. But they're hearing arguments now. I really do think this is going to go in Trump's favor. And by the way, in Trump's favor in this case is in our favor, in the favor of this country. I am, and I with like so many of people, I am for legal immigration. Legal immigration for people who want to go through the process, follow the rules, assimilate into our country, not hate who we are, the fundamental fabric of our nation, not hate who we are, what we value, our history, and distort and bastardize that. No, people who want to come to our country and recognize it as the great place that it is, all for that. 100%. When people talk about immigrants, they're not, immigrants built this country. People came over. Those people saw America for what it was, giving them the opportunity to pursue their dreams, the opportunity to live in a free place, and to live in a place where you can literally march down the road and hold up hateful signs to the president, and you don't have to worry about yourself. Countries where you didn't have and don't have the freedoms we have. People who come to this country and appreciate that and love that. I have a girlfriend who, my kids, by the way, get a kick out of me saying the phrase, I have a girlfriend. But I have a girlfriend who became here. She's Mexican, came here with her family when they were little. Parents did everything legally. She was legal the whole time. And then I remember helping her study for her citizenship test. And I remember just how thrilled she was when she passed it. And her ceremony, I have been to ceremonies back when I was from my hometown. I'm from Titusville, Florida, Brevard County. I would go to a number. I knew the woman who did U.S. citizenship ceremonies, and you could see twice. I got to hold the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Don't ask me why, but I did. But you could, so from the stage holding the flag, I could see these men and women in the crowd who had worked so hard and followed all the rules to come over to the United States, learn what they needed to learn, do everything the right way, and become U.S. citizens. And it is a beautiful, just a warm your heart thing to experience. And so what we're talking about here is we're talking about fundamentally changing back to what our founders wanted, back to where we should be, American citizenship. It's what people have done. Commercializing birthright citizenship is wrong. And I used to work for a member of Congress in Arizona. For those of you who didn't know, I actually came here straight left Capitol Hill and came straight to Alabama. Don't ask me about that. Actually, I talk about it all the time, but it was a huge change. The pace of Alabama was a huge change. But I have been in Arizona and I have seen where people will come across the border every day. It's not an exaggeration, waiting to give birth in an Arizona hospital so that they can claim their baby as a U.S. citizen and then they can get all the rights that are given to U.S. citizens. We have a fundamentally broken immigration system, and this will go a long way towards repairing that. I'm glad Trump has prioritized this. I'm glad he went today. It's something we should all pay attention to. We've got, academics, leftist academics arguing about this and what was intended by our founders. What was intended for birthright citizenship, but it in no way could anybody have imagined what is happening now and the way that this is impacting our country and everything around us. All right, I wanted to get into some of the bills that passed, and I talked myself right out of a program, so I'm not going to be able to do that. They did pass Bennett's bills in the Senate, including the 10 Commandments display. I'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. As I said before, they passed the renaming of Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. A lot of things going on in the legislature this week, and we'll get to them tomorrow and Friday. So you guys stay tuned for that. All right, it's been my pleasure. And until tomorrow, you guys stay out of trouble. Talk.
It's the Yaffee Program on WVNN.
This isn't your average podcast.
This pod is about to be crazy. I don't even know what's going to happen.
This is Full Send.
It's just like a boys scrap.
Join the party.
We threw like a spontaneous party out of nowhere. It was crazy. And we pulled off a crazy prank.
Pranks, parties, and viral culture at its wildest.
Just seeing like the guys that you brought in and like seeing their different personalities and stuff. It's been entertaining, dude.
So this could be the greatest content builder of all time, bro.
The Full Send podcast.
Dude, let's get ready to rumble.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Let's do it.